Hello, I'm Luke Singleton and welcome to the Spark Recruitment Illuminate interview series. As IT recruitment specialists, we're lucky enough to partner with some of Australia's leading IT companies and to understand their groundbreaking work. In this series, we'll be interviewing some of the thought leaders to get their insights and perspective from today's technology market. Today I'm with James Wilson from ROKT, ROKT's first CTO. Welcome, James.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I'm going to be talking to James today about his views around software engineering excellence. So James, obviously you've had a great career in the US working as an engineering leader for Amazon and Apple. You've recently joined ROKT, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Could you tell us about ROKT, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So ROKT is a global business, and we work in this thing that we call the transaction moment. And for people that are not familiar with that term, you might have seen our work before when you're on a ticketing site buying tickets to a gig or a travel site buying tickets to somewhere. And just as you complete that transaction, the system does this amazing job of positioning an amazing hotel offer or something that's beautifully complementary to that thing you've just bought. And that's us. We use a lot of machine learning and a lot of algorithms to determine that exact perfectly complementary offer to position to that user right at that moment, using a global network of very, very large data sets that we apply machine learning and algorithms to work out the best offer to place there.
So James, you've been in the media and you know, as a business, ROKT have publicly stated that your focus is building a world-class software engineering team.
Right.
Could you share with us some insights as to what that actually means?
For us, it's a very important dual focus of both people and technology. Again, the technology is not about being latest and greatest, it's about understanding the depth of wisdom in many different ways and many different disciplines that we can use to deliver our high-performance machine learning-based marketplace. And that's also something that was very important to us at Apple. You know, Apple was never first to do something, but always the absolute best to do something. And it's a similar sort of thing that we're pursuing here at ROKT. We don't want to be latest and greatest, the latest shiny thing that we latch onto, but we want to have very deep thinking and very considered ideas around why we do what we do and the path on which we're going to move towards to get there.
When we're recruiting for ROKT, it's one of the things that you guys are quite passionate about is the value of the individual as well as their technical capability. And obviously your CEO has been in the market saying that you guys want to hire between 50 and 70 new engineers during the course of the next 12 months. Obviously scaling an engineering group at that pace is pretty difficult to then maintain culture. So how are you kind of onboarding people, or what are you doing to make sure that those values and that definition of who ROKT is maintained through that period of hypergrowth?
Yeah, and look, it's great timing that we're doing this interview today, and because this is actually one of our quarterly induction weeks that we do. So the onboarding process is incredibly important at any organization, but for ours especially as we grow. And also in the nature of our business being split between, you know, we have the product and engineering center here in Sydney, and we have our New York office which handles all the commercial stuff, plus we have other satellite offices as well. Bringing that together and seeding that culture of being one company that's geographically dispersed and instilling those, not just the values, but the understanding of why they're our values and how they translate into what we do. The thing I love about ROKT, and actually the thing that really just tipped me over the edge in terms of wanting to work here, is just the way the people interact here and the energy that they've got behind them. And I think one of the things that we do really core here at ROKT that is important to being able to scale that culture is we do have those four simple values. We believe in enjoying the ride, which speaks to, you know, enjoying the work that we do. As we're very serious about it, but it's got to be fun and enjoyable as well. We conquer new frontiers, which is really, you know, that being at the forefront of a world-leading development organization. We're smart with humility, which is speaks to the type of personality we go after. You know, and there's a lot of personalities out there that are brilliant minds, but it comes with an incredible ego as well. We seek to find the people that are very smart, very good team players, but without that ego, and that's a very important part of our team. And lastly, we're customer obsessed. You know, we believe that the core of what our business does and the core value that we deliver, in abstract of anything marketplace or machine learning or anything else, is we're about solving very complicated problems for our customers, and so we've got to hold on to that customer obsession.
Yeah. So my final and favourite question, and I ask all the people I interview, is this: it's obviously if you were starting out now in your career, what 3 tips would you give people to succeed in the IT industry in today's world?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is you've really got to take time to build your own brand. I think there's more of an awareness of the individual that comes from being this sort of hyper-connected society now. That people have the ability to really build their own brand image and or brand name around them, and I think that's really important, that candidates have to understand you're not just the degree that you obtained, you're not just the skill set you have. You know, resilience is also a very key thing. You've really got to take every possible opportunity that you can to push yourself up and out of that comfort zone. You know, I see a lot of, I've worked with a lot of people that are brilliant minds, but they keep doing the same thing they've always done in their own little sphere of influence. And to some degree, you always need folks like that in a company, but I think they're really missing out on their own abilities to enrich their own, you know, corporate and personal lives, if they don't sort of step out of that and think, well, I might be a particularly good Java programmer, or I might be a particularly good C# programmer, but maybe I will go and take the time to go and learn functional programming, or I will go and take the time to go and really learn the deep math behind these algorithms, not just how to apply the off-the-shelf sort of thing. So really pushing yourself outside of that comfort zone, taking on the challenges, taking the risks as well, is super important. I think candidates sometimes underestimate just how powerful it can be to discuss something in an interview where it doesn't all have to be happy and roses and success. There's often a very good and illustrative and powerful conversation to have around, I did this thing and it didn't work out great, but here is all the lessons I've learned from it. You get a very quick sense of the adversity quotient for the candidate, and it's a very powerful thing. So I think building up that resiliency and being willing to take those risks is super important. And I think the third point is also to just be mindful of you know, breadth versus depth. There is a huge landscape of things, for lack of a better term, in technology at the moment, right? They're so wide and varied that it's difficult to even put a term on what they are other than just things, right? I mean, there's so many different frameworks, there's so many different development practices, there's so many different front ends, there's so many different back ends, there's different cloud providers. There doesn't seem to be a single thing in our world anymore that is just the one thing that everyone uses, right? And if there is, it won't be for long, because that's the nature of disruption. So you have to be very careful about how you're positioning your own, again, this comes back to personal branding a little bit, how you're positioning yourself in terms of breadth and depth. It needs to be a conscious decision. Neither one is necessarily right, but it needs to be a conscious decision in terms of really focusing on what you want to achieve as how you're putting yourself forward as a candidate. If you don't make that conscious choice, you can very quickly fall into the trap of being good at a lot of things, not great at anything.
So I think there's some really great insights from our perspective. The three things that employers seem to be wanting from the software engineering community are that expertise in one thing, but also an interest in others. Increasingly problem solving and logic skills around how you actually tackle a business problem through software, because software is great, but it's got to actually serve a purpose. And then the third thing seems to be obviously a strong mathematical background. Particularly with the advent of big data and you know, very machine learning based models and the prevalence of that coming through in all situations. So I think your points are really valid. So James, thank you so much for today.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure everybody will have a high interest in your comments. So thank you for your time today.
No problem. Thanks for your time.